It had been a long day, the kind that hums quietly in your chest, leaving you tired in ways you can't quite name. So when the snow began to fall soft and steady against the darkening sky, you didn't hurry. You walked into it. The cold air touched your face, crisp and clean, carrying the scent of wood smoke and something sweeter. Cinnamon, perhaps, or vanilla drifting from some unseen kitchen. Your footsteps pressed into fresh snow, each one a small sound quickly muffled by the falling flakes. The world grew quieter with each step, smaller, until it was just you and the path ahead and the gentle whisper of snow meeting earth. Ahead, beyond the muffled streets and the amber glow of street lamps, a small hotel appeared. You'd never noticed it before, tucked between tall pines and silence, its windows glowing warm against the winter night. The building looked old but cared for, its sign swinging slightly in the breeze. You couldn't quite read the lettering from this distance, but something about the place drew you forward. Some instinct older than reason. You realized you'd been walking toward it without deciding to, as if the hotel itself had reached across the snowy miles and called you in from the cold. The hotel lobby greeted you with warmth that seemed to rise from the very walls. Heat that went deeper than the fireplace crackling in the corner. Your coat dripped melting snow onto wide planked oak floors, worn smooth by decades of arrivals. The front desk stood unattended, its polished wood surface reflecting dancing flames. A small brass bell waited beside a leather-bound guest book whose pages had yellowed gently with time. Above, an old chandelier hung from exposed wooden beams, its crystals catching firelight and scattering it across the ceiling in patterns that shifted and breathed. Scattered across the floor were woven rugs in deep reds and forest greens. This was a place that had welcomed countless travelers, each one seeking shelter from storms, both literal and otherwise. To your left, through an archway framed in dark wood, you could see a sitting room. Leather armchairs faced the fire in comfortable conversation. A bookshelf lined one wall, its volumes showing the gentle creasing of many readings. On a low table sat a cup of tea, still steaming, as if someone had just stepped away. The windows here were tall and generous, their panes divided into small squares that framed the falling snow like dozens of individual paintings. Outside, the night had deepened to that particular shade of blue-black that only winter knows. The snow continued its patient work of softening every edge and corner of the world. The silence here wasn't empty. It was full of the fire's steady whisper, the barely audible creak of old wood settling, the distant sound of snow sliding from a pine branch and landing with a soft thump on the ground below. You could smell wood smoke and something baking, bread perhaps, or pastries wafting from somewhere deeper in the building. There was also the faint scent of old books, of beeswax polish, of wool and cotton, and all the natural things that gather in places where people have sought comfort for generations. You approached the desk. Details revealed themselves, vase holding sprigs of pine and winter berries, a stack of old postcards showing the hotel in different seasons, a lamp with a green glass shade casting a pool of gentle light. Your fingers trailed along the desk's edge, feeling the smoothness of wood that had been touched thousands of times. You felt suddenly grateful to be here, though you couldn't quite remember deciding to come. The brass bell sat waiting. You didn't ring it yet. You were content to simply stand in this threshold moment, this space between arrival and settling, where anticipation felt as comfortable as an old coat. Behind the desk, a door stood slightly ajar. Through it, you could see a narrow hallway lit by wall sconces that cast warm circles of light against floral wallpaper. Somewhere down that hall, a grandfather clock ticked its patient rhythm. The fire popped softly, sending up a small shower of sparks. Outside, the wind rose just enough to make the windows hum a low note before falling silent again. This was a place built for nights like this one, for travelers who arrived cold and weary and needed more than just a room. They needed sanctuary. A figure emerged from the back hallway with unhurried grace. He was older, this innkeeper, with silver hair combed neatly back and glasses perched on his nose. He wore a cardigan the color of moss over a crisp white shirt. His face carried the kind lines of someone who had spent decades welcoming strangers and seeing them transformed into guests. He moved behind the desk with practiced ease, his hands finding the guest book and opening it without looking. "Good evening," he said. His voice was low and gentle, with the slight rasp of someone who had told many bedtime stories. He didn't ask if you had a reservation, didn't inquire about your journey or your reasons for being here on this snowy night. Instead, he simply slid the guest book towards you and produced a fountain pen from his pocket. Its barrel was a deep burgundy. He placed it beside the book with the careful deliberation of someone presenting a gift. The pen was heavy in your hand, weighted with ink and history. When you signed your name in the book, the nib scratched softly against paper, leaving behind letters that looked more elegant than your handwriting usually allowed. He watched you sign with a small smile. Then he turned to the wall behind him where dozens of brass keys hung on numbered hooks, each one attached to a wooden tag worn smooth by handling. His fingers hovered over them for a moment, not selecting randomly but seeming to listen for something. Finally, he chose one from the third row, its brass dulled to a soft gold by age and use. He presented it to you with both hands, as if it was something precious. "Room 12, he said. "Top of the stairs, third door on the right. The room has a view of the garden, though there's not much to see tonight, except snow and the shapes of things beneath it." He paused. "Still, sometimes that's exactly what we need to see." You took the key and felt its weight, solid and reassuring. The kind of key that opens real locks with real tumblers, not the plastic cards of modern hotels. The wooden tag was warm from his hand. You could feel the number carved into its surface one, then two, the grooves deep enough to read with your fingertips. He gestured toward a staircase that rose along the far wall, its banister dark wood polished to a deep shine. You noticed for the first time that someone had placed candles on every third step. Small votives in clear glass holders that flickered and swayed in the drafts that moved through old buildings. The staircase curved gently as it climbed, disappearing around a corner. "Breakfast is at 8, he continued, though his tone suggested that 8 was merely a suggestion. "Or whenever you wake, really. The dining room is through there." He pointed to another archway. "But most guests prefer to take their coffee in the sitting room by the fire. There's always a pot brewing, and usually something sweet to go with it." He paused, adjusting his glasses. "The hotel is yours to explore. All the doors are open except the ones that aren't, and you'll know the difference. Sleep well, and should you need anything at all, I'll be here." With that, he settled onto a high stool behind the desk, pulled a book from beneath the counter, something leather-bound and thickened, began to read. His presence there as steady and constant as the fire itself. Your hand found the banister and you began to climb. Each step released a soft creak that sounded less like complaint and more like greeting, as if the stairs themselves were acknowledging your passage. The runner beneath your feet was plush and slightly worn. Its pattern of vines and flowers faded in the centers where countless feet had trodden. With each step up, you left behind a little more of the outside world. The candles glowed in their glass houses. As you passed each one, your shadow stretched long against the wall before shrinking again. a gentle rhythm of light and dark that felt almost like breathing. On the walls, framed photographs hung at irregular intervals, black and white images of the hotel in different eras. Summer guests in old-fashioned bathing costumes. Winter scenes where horse-drawn sleighs stood in the very spot where you'd left your own footprints just minutes ago. Halfway up, the stairs made their gentle turn. Here, there was a small landing with a window that looked out over the front of the hotel. You paused, drawn to the view. You watched the snow falling through the lamplight, each flake visible for just a moment before vanishing into the white expanse below. The pine trees that lined the drive stood dark and patient, their branches heavy with snow that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, as if the trees had captured some of the day's light and were slowly releasing it now. In the distance, you could see the faint outline of mountains, or perhaps they were only clouds. It was impossible to tell where earth ended and sky began on a night like this. The glass was cold against your palm when you touched it, cold enough to make you appreciate even more the warmth at your back. You could see your own reflection ghosted over the winter scene, making you both observer and part of the landscape. You turned from the window and continued climbing. Now the hallway came into view, a boulevard-long corridor lit by those same wall sconces you'd glimpsed earlier, their light falling in soft pools on wallpaper patterned with tiny roses and trailing ivy. The ceiling here was lower than in the lobby, making the space feel more intimate, more like a passage through someone's well-loved home rather than a commercial establishment. Doors lined both sides of the hallway, each one painted a deep cream color and fitted with brass hardware that had been polished countless times over the years. Some doors were numbered with small brass plates, others with numbers painted directly on the wood in an elegant script. You wondered briefly about the people sleeping behind them, whether they too had arrived tonight, seeking shelter from the snow. At the top of the stairs, you stepped into the hallway proper. The floor here was wooden, covered partially by a runner that matched the one on the stairs. The air smelled different, up here less of wood smoke and more of lavender and clean linen, with the faint mustiness that comes from old buildings, no matter how well maintained. Each footstep was quieter now, muffled by carpet. You moved down the hall, counting doors. 1, 2, 3. The sconces cast your shadow ahead of you, and you watched it move along the wall like a companion leading the way. Behind one door, you heard the faint sound of a radio playing classical music, something slow and piano-heavy that seemed perfect for a snowy night. Behind another, there was only silence, though you could see light seeping out beneath the door in a thin golden line. Room 12 waited exactly where the innkeeper said it would be. Third door on the right, its brass number slightly crooked, giving it character. You fit the key into the lock and felt the mechanism turn with satisfying weight. The tumblers fell into place, one by one, click, 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 before the door swung open on well-oiled hinges. The room beyond was dark except for the faint blue light of the snowy night coming through the window. You stood for a moment on the threshold, letting your eyes adjust, feeling that small thrill of discovery that comes with entering any new space, any room that might become, even temporarily, yours. You reached inside and found the light switch. You expected harsh overhead brightness, but instead a bedside lamp illuminated with a soft amber glow that seemed to gather in the corners rather than chase them away. The room revealed itself, gradually a brass bed with a thick quilt in shades of cream and blue, a nightstand holding the lamp and a small vase with dried flowers, a wardrobe against one wall with its doors slightly ajar as if inviting you to hang your coat. The walls were papered in a subtle pattern of birch trees, their white bark and dark markings making the room feel like a forest clearing. Above the bed hung a painting of a winter landscape, all soft blues and greys, and the suggestion of a frozen lake. This was a room that had been designed not for style, but for comfort, for rest, for the deep sleep that only comes when everything around you conspires toward peace. The window drew your attention. You crossed to it, your footsteps silent on a rug that covered most of the floor. Through the glass, you could see the garden the innkeeper had mentioned, the space defined now only by the shapes of things covered in snow, rounded forms that might be bushes or small trees, the linear suggestion of a path, the dark rectangle of what could be a fountain or a bird bath. Snow continued to fall. Watching it from this warm vantage point created a strange doubling of awareness. You were here, inside and safe, but you were also somehow out there in the cold, each snowflake falling through you as much as around you. The window frame itself was old, the wood painted white and showing tiny cracks in the paint where time had had its way. Between the panes, you could see the original glass, slightly wavy, slightly imperfect. It gave the view outside a subtle distortion that made it seem even more dreamlike. You turned back to the room and noticed details you'd missed at first. A small writing desk beneath the window with a single drawer and a simple wooden chair. A shelf holding a few books whose titles you couldn't quite read in this light. A door that presumably led to a bathroom. On the desk sat an old-fashioned alarm clock, the kind with actual bells on top and hands that swept rather than clicked. It showed the time as just past 9, though it felt much later, as if you'd been traveling for hours rather than minutes. There was also a water carafe and a glass, both catching the lamplight. Beside them, a small card written in flowing script. Rest well, tomorrow will take care of itself. The bed called to you. You sat on its edge, feeling the mattress give in that particular way that suggests real springs and horsehair and layers of comfort built up over decades. The quilt was heavy and slightly cool to the touch, the kind that would warm quickly from body heat. When you ran your hand across it, you could feel the texture of hand stitching, tiny knots where threads were tied off. The irregular but somehow perfect spacing of quilting that had been done by hand and eye rather than machine. You pulled back the covers and found white sheets that smelled of lavender and sunshine. Impossibly crisp, impossibly inviting. Beneath them, a wool blanket the color of oatmeal. The pillows were full and soft, encased in cotton that had been washed so many times it felt like silk. When you leaned back against them, they seemed to conform exactly to the shape of your head and neck, offering support without resistance. From somewhere in the hotel, you heard the grandfather clock begin to chime the hour. 9 deep, resonant tones that seemed to travel through the building's bones rather than through the air. Each one arrived not with harshness, but with gentle insistence, marking time without urgency. The sound faded into silence, and in that silence, you became aware of all the small sounds that make up quiet. The faint hiss of the radiator beneath the window releasing its steady warmth. The whisper of snow against glass. Your own breathing beginning to slow and deepen. This room had absorbed decades of peaceful nights. That peace was palpable now, settling over you like an additional blanket. Invisible but undeniable. You rose from the bed and returned to the window, drawn again by the perpetual motion of falling snow and the stillness beneath it. The garden below had taken on a quality you couldn't quite name in the darkness. Each snow-covered shape suggested more than it revealed. Perhaps that round form was a rosebush dreaming of June. Perhaps that tall, narrow shape was a statue of some forgotten saint or garden deity. The moon, hidden behind clouds, nevertheless made its presence known through a diffuse glow that turned the entire sky into a soft lantern. In that gentle light, the the snow on the ground seemed to emit its own luminescence. A cool blue-white radiance that transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary. You could see your breath fogging the window glass slightly. You drew back, not wanting to obscure the view. To the left, beyond the garden's boundary, pine trees rose like dark sentinels. Their forms barely distinguishable from the night itself, except where snow had collected on their branches, outlining them in white. They stood in clusters and alone, arranged in the random patterns of nature rather than the ordered rows of a planted forest. Watching them, you were struck by how patient they seemed, how anciently calm, as if they'd witnessed countless winters and knew that this one, like all the others, would eventually yield to spring. Between the trees, you caught glimpses of what might be a path winding away into deeper woods, though it was impossible to be certain. It might be just a clearing, or a trick of shadow and light, or your imagination filling in details that weren't quite there. The snow falling between you and those distant trees created layers of depth. Some flakes close enough to track individually as they drifted past the window, others farther out where they became a veil, a softening of everything beyond. Occasionally, a gust of wind disturbed the snow's straight-down descent, sending it swirling in brief spirals before gravity reasserted itself. These small disruptions felt important somehow. Tiny reminders that nature, even at its calmest, retained its wildness, its refusal to be completely predictable. You watched one such swirl and tried to track a single flake, but it was impossible. They all looked alike, and yet each one was different. In trying to follow just one, you lost yourself in the mesmerizing dance of thousands. Closer in, right below your window, you could make out what appeared to be a bench. A simple wooden seat with armrests, now buried under snow that had rounded its hard edges into something soft and inviting. As if the winter had made furniture for itself and sat down for a long conversation with the night. You imagined summer guests sitting there in the warmth of June, reading or talking or simply watching the garden grow. The juxtaposition of that imagined scene with the current reality created a strange temporal overlap, as if all the seasons existed simultaneously, layered one upon another, visible only to those who took the time to look. The bench sat empty now, gathering snow, patient in its purpose, knowing that warmth would return, that seasons turn, that nothing stays frozen forever. Behind you, the lamp continued its steady glow. You were aware of being suspended between two worlds, the warm amber interior of your room and the cold blue exterior of the winter night. Both had their appeal. Both offered their own kind of peace. Standing here at the window, you existed in both simultaneously, warm and cold, inside and outside, awake and gradually surrendering to sleep. The window glass, that thin barrier between you and the night, held this boundary. You pressed your fingertips against it one more time, feeling the cold, feeling the warmth, feeling the way they met and mingled at this precise point of contact. You moved away from the window, finally, drawing the curtains closed, heavy fabric in a deep blue that pulled slightly on the floor. The room became even more intimate, more enclosed. A perfect capsule of warmth and safety. The small bathroom door opened to reveal white tile and an old-fashioned pedestal sink. A clawfoot tub with a shower curtain suspended from a circular rod. Everything clean and slightly worn in the way of well-maintained vintage fixtures. The mirror above the sink was framed in dark wood. In it, you caught your own reflection and barely recognized yourself. You looked softer somehow, more relaxed than you'd felt in weeks, as if this place had already begun its work of unwinding the tension you carried. You ran water in the sink, It came out with a slight shudder of pipes before settling into a steady stream, warm enough to steam the mirror's edges. There was a bar of soap in a small dish, handmade by the feel of it, pale yellow and smelling of honey and oats. When you lathered your hands, the scent rose, gentle and wholesome, uncomplicated. A small towel hung on a brass ring, monogrammed with the hotel's initials in faded thread. It was soft against your face when you dried off, carrying that same clean linen smell that permeated the entire building. Everything here felt considered but not fussed over, comfortable but not careless, as if each detail had been chosen by someone who understood the difference between luxury and comfort, and had chosen comfort every time. Back in the bedroom, you found your night clothes and changed into them. You folded your day clothes over the back of the chair at the desk. The floor was cool beneath your bare feet, a pleasant contrast to the room's overall warmth. You moved to the bed, pulling back the covers completely now, revealing the pristine white expanse of the bottom sheet. The mattress dipped as you climbed in. Immediately, the bedding seemed to gather around you, the quilt's weight settling over your legs and torso, the pillows cradling your head in their soft embrace. You reached for the lamp, your fingers finding the small brass key that turned it. You hesitated for just a moment before extinguishing the light, letting the room fall into darkness. The darkness, however, was not absolute. Your eyes adjusted. You could see the faint line of light beneath the door, the suggestion of the window's shape where the curtains didn't quite meet. These small sources of illumination were enough to outline the room's basic geography. More importantly, they were enough to remind you that you weren't in complete isolation. Beyond this room, the hotel continued its quiet existence, the innkeeper reading at his desk, the fire burning in the sitting room, other guests sleeping in their own rooms. All of you held in this temporary community of the night. The thought was comforting rather than intrusive, knowing that solitude and company both existed here, available in whatever measure you needed. You shifted position, finding the exact spot where your body seemed to fit the mattress perfectly, where no adjustment was needed, where everything aligned. The pillow cooled your cheek. The blankets warmed your body. Somewhere between these two sensations, you felt yourself beginning to drift. Outside, the snow continued falling. Inside, the radiator continued its gentle hiss. In the space between, you existed in a state of perfect suspension, neither fully awake nor yet asleep, floating in that delicious in-between place where both states blurred and overlapped and became, for a moment, indistinguishable from each other. In the darkness, sounds became more pronounced, more textured, more present. You became aware first of your own breathing, how it had slowed without effort. Each inhale and exhale a gentle wave that rocked you slightly. Then you noticed the hotel's breathing. Yes, the building breathed too. You could hear it now. The expansion and contraction of wood responding to temperature. The creak of a floorboard in the hallway as someone passed, or as the building simply settled into its foundations. The way old structures do when the day's activity fades and night takes over. These sounds weren't disturbing, but companionable. The acoustic equivalent of someone else's presence in a nearby room. Enough to remind you that you weren't alone, but not so much as to intrude on your solitude. The radiator beneath the window released another soft hiss, steam moving through pipes. You could almost track its journey through the walls, imagining the water heated somewhere in the basement, rising through the building, distributing warmth to each room before cooling and descending to be heated again. It was a closed loop, a perfect cycle. There was something deeply satisfying about understanding this simple system, this ancient method of keeping winter at bay. Occasionally, the radiator made a small ticking sound, metal expanding. These irregular ticks became almost musical, a random percussion that refused pattern but somehow created rhythm anyway, the way rain on a roof does, or wind in trees. From somewhere distant in the hotel came the sound of a door closing, not slammed but carefully shut, the soft click of a latch catching, then footsteps moving down a hallway, fading away. You wondered who else was awake at this hour, what brought them to this place, whether they too were lying in their beds listening to the night's subtle symphony. Perhaps it was someone unable to sleep, making their way to the sitting room for tea. Or maybe it was the innkeeper doing his rounds, checking that all was well, that fires were banked and doors were locked, and his temporary family of guests was safe and warm. The footsteps disappeared entirely, absorbed by distance and the building's thick walls. The silence that followed felt deeper for having been briefly broken. The wind picked up outside. You heard it moving through the pine trees, a rushing sound that rose and fell like breathing or like waves on a shore, each gust carrying its own message in a language you couldn't quite translate but somehow understood. The window rattled slightly in its frame, not violently but gently, a small tremor that reminded you of the thin barrier between inside and outside, warmth and cold, comfort and wilderness. But the rattle wasn't alarming, it was almost reassuring. Proof that the window was doing its job, holding firm against the weather while allowing you this small contact with it. This visceral reminder that there was weather happening out there, even as you lay here in perfect comfort. Gradually, you became aware that you were listening not just to these individual sounds, but to their interaction. The way they layered and combined and created something larger than their individual parts. The radiator's hiss met the wind's rush. Your breathing synced briefly with a distant creak before falling out of phase again. The overall effect was hypnotic. A lullaby without melody or words. A song sung in the language of houses and winter and nighttime peace. Your body responded without your conscious direction. Muscles you didn't know were tense, beginning to release. Jaw unclenching, shoulders dropping. The small knot in your lower back slowly unwinding as if the sounds themselves were hands working out the day's accumulated tension. In this state, not quite asleep, not fully awake, your mind began to wander, drifting without direction or purpose. Images surfaced unbidden. A childhood winter. Building snowmen with hands too small to really pack the snow properly. The way your mittens got soaked and stiff. The hot chocolate waiting inside that was always too hot to drink immediately. You saw your breath fogging in front of your face. Saw the neighbor's dog bounding through drifts. Saw lights coming on in windows as afternoon turned to evening. These memories arrived without the usual weight of nostalgia. No longing or sadness attached. Just simple recollection. Moments floating up like bubbles and popping gently at the surface of consciousness. Then you were thinking about other hotels. Other nights in unfamiliar beds. How strange it always felt at first to sleep somewhere new. How the pillows were never quite right. How the darkness had a different quality in each place. But this bed, this room, this hotel somehow bypassed all that strangeness. Felt familiar from the first moment. As if you'd been here before, in dreams or in some life you didn't remember living. Perhaps everyone felt this way here. Perhaps that was the hotel's particular magic too, make strangers feel immediately at home. To offer not just accommodation but homecoming, not just shelter but sanctuary. The thought drifted away before you could examine it too closely, replaced by another image. Morning light through these same curtains, the way it would look completely different. The garden transformed into something new. You imagined walking through that garden in daylight. Maybe tomorrow, maybe some future visit, seeing what all those snow-covered shapes actually concealed. That round form revealed as indeed a rosebush, thorny and bare, but alive beneath the white covering, waiting for spring. That tall, narrow shape turning out to be a sundial, its face showing time in the ancient way, by shadow and light. Rendered temporarily useless by winter's clouds, but patient in its purpose, knowing the sun would return. The path would lead somewhere, perhaps to a greenhouse or a gazebo, perhaps simply looping back to the hotel's entrance. You would follow it, snow crunching underfoot, breath visible in cold air, and it would all feel like an adventure, even though you wouldn't be going far from safety. But these imaginings of tomorrow felt less urgent than the present moment. This delicious now where you were held suspended between waking and sleeping, between thought and dream. Your mind began to mix things together, memories of other winters blending with this present winter. The childhood snowman standing suddenly in the garden below your window. The neighbor's dog now sleeping beside this bed, all time collapsing into this single point of consciousness that was simultaneously all times and no time at all. It wasn't confusing, this temporal blurring. It was lovely, each moment and memory given equal weight and importance. The past as vivid as the present, the imagined future as real as both. You thought about the innkeeper downstairs, wondered if he was still reading or if he'd dozed off in his chair by the fire, his book fallen open across his chest, his glasses slipped down his nose. You hoped he was comfortable, hoped he knew how grateful you were for this place he maintained, for the warmth and the quiet and the feeling of being held safely through the night. But the thought of gratitude drifted away too, joining all the other thoughts in their gentle procession through your consciousness. Not abandoned, but simply released, allowed to move on while others took their place. An endless stream of ideas and images and sensations that required nothing from you except that you notice them and let them go. Your body had begun the final surrender now, each muscle group releasing in sequence like dominoes falling in slow motion. Your feet, which you hadn't realized were slightly tensed, relaxed completely, becoming heavy against the mattress. Your calves followed, then your thighs, the large muscles of your legs going slack and soft, all their work done for the day, all their carrying and supporting and balancing complete. The release moved upward, wave-like, through your hips and lower back, that troublesome region that held so much tension beginning to soften, to settle more deeply into the bed's support, trusting it to hold what you could finally stop holding yourself. Your breathing had changed rhythm again, slower now, deeper, each breath seeming to take minutes rather than seconds. In the pause between exhale and inhale, there was a moment of perfect stillness, a tiny void that felt paradoxically full, pregnant with possibility and peace. Your chest rose and fell with minimal effort, the lungs doing their ancient work without your supervision or assistance. You felt profound gratitude for this automation, for all the processes your body handled without asking, allowing you this luxury of simply existing without effort. Your shoulders, having held themselves slightly elevated all day, as if ready to carry something or ward off some blow, finally dropped, releasing tension you didn't know you were carrying. The relief was so intense, it was almost painful. A sweet ache that immediately dissolved into pure comfort. Your face relaxed too, jaw unclenching, lips parting slightly, the small muscles around your eyes letting go, even your scalp somehow releasing tension you didn't know was there. And with this final physical surrender came a mental one. The constant low-level monitoring your brain did all day. Is that sound dangerous? Is that person a threat? What time is it? What do I need to remember? What should I be doing? Instead of this, all of it finally powering down like a computer, shutting off its background processes. The relief was enormous. A weight you'd forgotten you were carrying simply evaporating, leaving you lighter, freer, more purely yourself than you'd felt in days or weeks, or possibly longer. Outside, the wind had chilled, or perhaps you were just less aware of it, less connected to the world beyond this room, this bed, this moment. The snow still filled. You knew this without needing to see it tanned. The hotel still stood around you, its walls and roof and foundation holding firm against the winter night. But these facts became abstract, less immediate, as if they were happening in another world that ran parallel to this one, but no longer intersected with it. You were sinking now, not falling, but being gradually lowered, as if the bed itself was a platform descending slowly through layers of consciousness, each layer warmer and darker and more welcoming than the last. The border between waking and sleeping, usually so clear and definite, had become porous, permeable, something you drifted across without noticing the transition. Were you awake now, lying here thinking about sleep, or were you already dreaming about being awake? The question arose but didn't trouble you, didn't require an answer, simply floated by like everything else, like the snow outside, like your own thoughts, all of it part of the same gentle current carrying you deeper into the night. Your last conscious thought, if it could even be called that, was how perfectly natural this felt, how right, how this was exactly what was supposed to happen, what was always going to happen, what was happening now, had been happening all along. And so the night settled around you like snow around the hotel, soft and complete, erasing all the sharp edges and transforming everything into gentle curves and quiet spaces. The story found its natural rest here, in this room at the top of the stairs, in this bed that had held so many travelers, in this moment that belonged only to you and the night and the snow that continued its patient work outside. Morning would come, as it always did, bringing with it light and breakfast and the sound of the innkeeper moving through the halls. But that morning existed in another time, another story. For now, there was only this, the weight of blankets, the softness of pillows, the steady rhythm of your breathing growing slower, deeper, more distant. Rest now. Let your body sink fully into the mattress. Let your mind release its hold on waking thoughts. Let the hotel hold you safely through these dark hours. There was nothing more to do tonight. No tasks waiting. No decisions to make. No place you needed to be except exactly here. The room knew its purpose. The bed knew its work. Both were doing what they were made for, cradling you, warming you, keeping you safe while you drifted through dreams or dreamless sleep, while the world outside continued turning, while snow fell and wind moved through pines and the grandfather clock downstairs marked hours you wouldn't hear. If you'd like more stories like this, one gentle journeys through quiet places, narratives that ask nothing except that you rest, you'll find them here, waiting for you like rooms in this hotel, each one different, each one designed to carry you softly towards sleep. A new story each week, a place to return when the world feels too loud, when your mind races with tomorrow's concerns, when you simply need permission to stop and breathe and let yourself be held by words and silence and the knowledge that rest is not a luxury but a necessity, not an indulgence but a homecoming. Stay with us. Let these stories become your nightly ritual, your signal to the day that its hold on you is done. your gateway to the peace you deserve. Sleep well now. Let the snowy night hotel fade into the landscape of your dreams, knowing that it will be here whenever you need it. Its lights glowing warm in the darkness, its door always open, its rooms forever prepared for travelers seeking shelter from the cold. Until we meet again in another story, in another quiet corner of the night, be gentle with yourself. Rest deeply, dream softly, and know that morning, when it comes, will find you restored. Sleep.